Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Caines, and Ed Mann.
Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Three Devs and a Maybe. I am joined today by my co-host who hasn't been on for a while actually, so it's good to have him back, Mr. Lewis Caines. How are you doing?
Oh, hello. I thought you were going to talk about Fraser then.
Oh no, I was back last week, unlike you.
Yeah, apology. Yeah, I know. Sorry, I've been bad last couple of weeks, but it's been a little bit busy, and I did see a tweet from some bloke asking where me and Fraser were, so I didn't respond to it, unfortunately, but thank you very much for that, and I am safe and well, and I am back this week.
Good.
And it's lovely to be here.
What was that guy's name?
Statistically...
Steve?
Steve.
Statistically Steve. Brilliant.
Statistically Steve. That was his name. That was it.
And my other co-host, Fraser Hart.
Hello,
how you doing?
man?
Yeah, good. And you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, I've got a whole week of web development under my belt since coming back now, and yeah, pretty much straight back in the swing of things.
How's that been then? Has it felt a bit weird? Is there like stuff that you felt like you completely forgot, or
not really? No, because while I was away, I was thinking about or trying to think about web dev, and I was like, I'm going to have forgotten everything by the time we get back. But it's all kind of come flooding back to me. So I'm kind of knuckles deep in this same projects that I was working on before I went away. A certain one that you've worked on before as well. So
no way. Is that still hanging around?
It hung around, then it got released, then it kind of came back,
didn't it?
All kinds of issues there. I don't know if you want me to kind of elaborate, but yeah.
You can if you want. I don't know. Go for it.
I think I mentioned before anyway, they wanted to host it themselves, so we developed all the code, and then they signed it off and said, yeah, that's fine, can we have the code? So we gave them the code, and then they struggled to they had a developer in air quotes, who was going to set it up on their server for them, and set the server up, and it basically turned out that he'd kind of sold himself a bit higher than he was, and he didn't know how to set the server up, and then he couldn't get the code running on their server. So
cannot believe they've ratted me out.
So it took them about a month to actually get the code running on their server, and then in the process, their developer kind of made a lot of changes to the code and stuff, and then now they're discovering bugs that, quite rightly, some of them are bugs from our end, because with a project that size, you can't get something completely bug free. So we're happy to fix those, but it's kind of the amount of time that goes into investigating, well, is this one of our bugs or is this one of their bugs? It's quite a time consuming process and quite frustrating as well when it comes to getting these emails saying, oh, why doesn't this work? And it's like, well, because your code's different to the code that we supplied you with, so it's technically not down to us.
Do you know from looking at the code when there's a bug whether it's more likely to have been Mike or Ed?
Pretty much always Ed, to be honest. Yeah, because I know he can talk the talk. He can't actually do the.
No, I can't.
Michael and Ed. Yeah, Mike. Because for the listeners, Michael and Ed both worked on this project, and I took it over from them when they left the company. And it's great code. They've done a fantastic job.
Spent half my time just cleaning up Ed's code. I hate to throw him in front of a bus, but it was just awful. Really shambolic code.
After all the stuff I taught him as well, unbelievable.
There was something as well that came back. Like after we gave it to them, they came back and they said the developer had found a line in there that just said "Echo cheese." And then obviously you guys were talking about Echo cheese last week, and I was like, oh, so that's where it's come from.
That's amazing. Oh, wow.
So we got one. Why is there a picture of Ian Botham on my website? And I was like, oh. Yeah, that's just my go-to. Whenever I need a sample image, I have a picture of Ian Botham on my desktop. And why not? What if it wasn't Ian Botham? Who would it be?
Exactly.
Donald Duck? Yep, got that one as well.
On there, anything, would you? That'd be disgusting. So, exactly. Ian Botham, beautiful.
Fraser, how are the I don't know how to say it without saying what it actually was, but the agricultural-based website that I worked on greatly when I was there.
I don't know, to be honest. Before I went away, I don't think they were doing too well, because they'd gone through the young lady that we used to deal with. She left, and then they had someone else, and then she left very quickly, and they had someone else, and then she's left. But yeah, since I've been back, I've not even heard the name of that business since I've been back. So whether they've disappeared and gone elsewhere, or whether the business is no longer a business, I might have a quick look now, actually.
It's still going. It still looks identical. So,
When was the last news item put up?
I didn't look into that much depth.
Let's have a look.
What about modules? All the modules.
Oh, latest news, 23rd of July. So
no, that's just today. That's just the time.
Yeah.
That's the clock.
Sorry.
You're just looking at the date there.
Oh yeah, no, they've got something that went up this morning. Yeah, so yeah, they're definitely still in business apparently.
Should point out that we're recording here. Mike's not actually wearing any clothes again.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I've got a towel.
He's been for a run.
Yeah,
so he's looking
for
all
a run.
buff and sweaty.
4 miles, always 4 miles to anyone that follows him on Twitter.
4.1.
4.1.
And he follows him on Strava.
Yeah, follow me on Strava if you're interested.
Yeah, I want some Strava
Fitness
followers.
is not
as well.
improving.
Fraser's on there as well. So.
Yeah, and I'm getting my bike back this weekend because it's been for a little service since I came back. So yeah, I picked that up at the weekend. So I'm going to start smashing out some miles on the bike as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Fraser, this is what I wanted to say. Well, first of all, this is obviously something you don't see every day. But last time I spoke to you, you were obviously going to be. No, it wasn't last time I spoke to you. I think it was a couple of podcasts back. You talked about you were down in Plymouth or something like that, and you'd gone down there to practice the boat, whatever that means.
Yeah.
It's not but you couldn't do it because it had been full up with water.
Yes.
And listening to that podcast, one of the things I said to you was, well, at least you know your boat is safe.
Yes.
After all I know you obviously spoke
curse.
about a lot this last week, but
Yeah.
you know, again, something we don't normally say today, but I haven't spoke to you since you were nearly drowned in the Pacific.
No, I
So,
spoke to you briefly, didn't? Because when I was in the US, I was driving somewhere, and then I got a message over Skype from Ed, and then I called, and I'm sure were you on the call, or was it just Ed?
no, I spoke to you the day before you flew out.
Right. Okay. Sorry, that was you,
Yeah.
Michael, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Lewis.
I literally, we got one word from you, which was a swear word, and that was it. It just went dead.
Because I was like, I kind of thought, I hope they're recording, because I was like driving down the motorway and trying to get. This is obviously very safe, but like driving down the motorway with my phone in front of my face, trying to get in on the 3 devs action, but yeah, it didn't work out too well. The network wasn't too good.
Yeah. So, Lou, you said you had a bit of a topic to bring up or something.
Oh, I've got a few. Well, I haven't got a couple. No, things have gone pretty busy at work, and just varying things have cropped up. And well, the first one that cropped up today is basically a website that we've got. The domain is hosted elsewhere away from us, and we're now taking it on. So I had to give the guy our IP address so he could change all his A records and stuff over. And initially, when he did it, the change was reflected without the www in front of the URL, but not with it. Have you guys experienced that before? Even though he said that he'd obviously updated both DNS records. Is that something you guys have ever seen? So if you type the website in with www, you're getting a completely different result than...
Oh, yeah.
I've seen that only when they don't update the www and the non-www. Yeah. But if he says that he's done both, then...
Exactly. So he said to me that I need to do this DNS flush thing. He said, try a DNS flush, and if that doesn't work, try doing an IPS config flush. And I not wanting to sound stupid, I just went, yeah, okay then. And started Googling it, and was none the wiser really after even looking at it. And eventually it propagated, and it was fine anyway. But I thought, have you guys ever done anything to do with that? Or...
Yeah, I've done similar things. So,
is it Intel SSH into your server or what? What's the deal?
So if I explain the issue I had this week, I think it might help. Maybe.
Go for it.
So, like, obviously your DNS records, obviously, like the internet's phone book, blah blah blah. That you know, and it points you into a certain direction. Well, I had an issue this week where I changed internet provider, and basically I could use Skype, I could do all kinds of stuff, but I couldn't actually access a web page. And that was because of a DNS issue where it was going off to my new provider to get the DNS records, and it wasn't getting anything back. So I changed my internal DNS settings to go and look at OpenDNS, and suddenly I was getting web pages and stuff. But I think I had to do a similar thing with the DNS flush and all that kind of stuff. It just clear all the history and get rid of it. But I don't think it always works, and that's beyond my understanding, to be honest.
Where did you actually do the flush?
So, because mine was like a local thing, so I could just open up terminal and did it. But like you said, you would have to like SSH and
everything I saw was how to do these things locally, and I thought, well, if that was a problem, that I'd be all right with that. But I was obviously looking up DigitalOcean and stuff like that, trying to find out how can you do a DNS flush through DigitalOcean or what, and couldn't find anything.
Yeah, you could do it via SSH, but I'd be surprised if that would have been the issue. Did you resolve it then in the end, or
it just propagated in the end? It took
that's the thing,
nearly 24 hours
just
longer than the other one, but it got there.
Yeah, that's it.
I think the best way to do it is just send an email to Jez, and then he'll hopefully do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that cropped up this week was again with DigitalOcean. I've been migrating a load of our sites over onto it. I finally managed to persuade my company to let me stick some of the newer things on DigitalOcean.
Oh, awesome.
You guys are both using that now, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm doing very little with it, but yeah, I've got it, and I've got a site on there. But
yeah, I mean, it's great. I just like it because it's obviously you get to set it up exactly how you want, and the thing I like the most is that I can just use Git to deploy backwards and forwards, and now I haven't got to manually FTP all my changes and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the sites that I put onto it it's got quite a big file upload facility. It's like a data room, so the clients can store all files and things within it. And it wasn't working. It wasn't uploading, and one way or another, eventually I got to the issue that it was in my PHP.ini file. So it was the first time I've ever had to like properly mess around with that kind of configuration.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you guys knew the two things in the PHP.ini file that you have to change to make it to be able to upload files. Basically, the file was too big.
Is it the max post
upload
size?
file?
Yeah, max post size.
Yeah.
Max.
There's one for array size as well, isn't there? Like number of characters in an array or something. But yeah, I think it's like max _ upload _
max
size?
file size and post max size.
Yeah.
Those were the two. So yeah, that was quite a cool learning curve yesterday, messing around with all that stuff. Oh, and always restart your Apache server after you do any of that stuff. Otherwise, you'll be hitting refresh frantically.
I tend to anything like that. I mean, if I know it's going to be site specific that they need a big upload, then I'll do it in either htaccess or just make a new ini file in your local folder, because that will overwrite the master one. So you can just change it for that local site rather than.
I don't know why I often don't do these things in the htaccess file. I normally just go straight for the thing. But I suppose on a live server, you want to probably be doing stuff project by project, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
So what's going on with my hair?
At least you got some. Yeah.
Sorry. They're on video this evening.
Yeah. So, Fraser, you had a good week then, other than getting back into code.
It's been fine, mate. Yeah, I can't really remember what I've done. Nothing too excited to report. We've got a few projects going on in the office. I'm currently doing or trying to find a bit of time to put a quote together for a freelance project as well. But I think that's going to be a bit of a mammoth one. So yeah, kind of.
Oh, that was the one that you talked to us about.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was away over the weekend,
Mate,
and
not a problem at all.
I forgot to respond to that. But I wouldn't be able to at the moment. I'm afraid.
No, that's not a problem at all. So I'm going to kind of hopefully spend a bit of time to put a quote together for that, because it's quite a comprehensive system that they're after.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be quite a lot of time that's going to have to be quoted for. But
that's a big project, isn't it? Yeah,
really is.
I sort of read the spec and I was thinking, baby on the way. Yeah. Probably not, to be honest. But yeah.
Have you just decided that you wanted to do it yourself then, or
no?
Or could you not find anyone else?
I think so. Or? It's a mate of mine, so I kind of potentially, I think they want to move quite quickly. So I think they want to move quicker than I'm going to be able to. Because obviously having a full-time job, I can only dedicate a certain amount of time to it. But it's going to be a hell of a lot of work. So I'm going to quote for it, but be realistic with the time that it is going to take, and how soon they can expect to actually have a prototype, and how soon they can actually expect to have the final thing done. If that scares them away, then so be it. But
yeah, I'm kind of steering clear of any major freelance work now. I've learnt the hard way over the last couple of months that trying to combine full time and lots of freelance is a life killer.
Oh, you had like 4 projects on the go at one stage, didn't you?
Yeah, it's so weird because they've gone live, and they're both gone live with bits still to come from my clients, but those bits still haven't arrived. It seems to just be this weird thing of just having massive gaps in time between communication between you and them. Like either a freelance or just at work or whatever. It's weird. Like in the beginning, it's all about when you're going to be able to meet this deadline, and when can this be done, and when can this be done. And when it comes down to it, it just never gets done. It's so weird. Even if you've got the best will in the world, it's a two-way street for all of it, isn't it? It's not all down to the developer, and not to blow my own trumpet, but it's never been my fault that anything's been late. So, It seems to be a bit of a weird one, but there we go.
It's a bit of a stressful time at the minute, then.
Not stressful, just busy. Busy. It's the nature of where I am is that basically, if the design side of things takes off and gets really busy, then kind of the web side of things plays secondary to that, because it is predominantly a design business. So recently, like, all the designers there have got literally nothing going on at the moment. I don't know if it's just a seasonal thing or whatever, but now the attention's turning back to the web things, and it's all coming back, back together. And I'm obviously the only developer there, so I've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 things that have hit me in the last few days. So yeah, pretty flat out at the minute. Yeah, but it's a good problem. I mean, obviously the days are going by. It's just trying to get everything done and trying to allocate an equal amount of energy to each thing. Yeah, because you're not trying to rush everything. So trying to find that balance. But it's all right. It's going okay.
Getting the balance is definitely hard. Yeah.
Yeah. How's your life, work, impending fatherhood?
Everything else? It's all good. I'm trying to think if I've done anything exciting kind of work-wise. Not really. I kind of just keep reading a bit more, really getting into kind of design patterns at the moment, just learning more about that. Like I said to you guys, I really got out of all the web stuff, really, when I've been doing my uni stuff. So just trying to learn a few things, and also did a bit of prep for this podcast. And other than that, kind of privately, me and Abby now, after we wouldn't move, we kind of seen a house that we really, really want. Yeah, we kind of been told today that we potentially could have a mortgage in principle for it. So, whereas we didn't think we would. So, it's
same area, or
it's about 10 minutes away.
Awesome.
It's like a 3-bed house. It's not huge, but it's got a massive, massive, massive garden. Like you could literally have like a 5-side football pitch there. So I can't. I'm really hoping we get it, and we'll have you guys all over for a barbecue or something.
That'd be great. Are you renting, or do you own at the moment? Or
we own. Yeah, and basically we went to estate agents today, and we had no idea our house is worth what it was. So it was a good surprise. So, but yeah, it's one of these sale by tender things. So it's like an auction. So there's no guarantees we're going to get it, but I'll keep you updated. Yeah.
So you stand there with a rolled up newspaper against your head and then kind of pull it away when you want to put a bid in.
Exactly. But I have to show it to you guys, but literally it's like 2 houses in the middle of nowhere. So you could have like amazing like summer parties there and stuff. So yeah, I'll keep posted. I'm sure the listeners are riveted by this conversation, but yeah.
3 devs do mortgage advice. We just cover everything on this show.
Exactly. But obviously, Ed will be devastated if we don't get onto hot picks. So, anyone got any hot picks this week? This is where the deadly silence comes.
I've been spending basically pretty much all my free time right now has gone back into just completely throwing myself in the deep end with Laravel. So, I don't know, for a month or so now, I've been really getting back into that. And can't say. I mean, we had Taylor on obviously a few weeks back. Did you hear that one, Fraser?
I did, yeah. Yeah, very impressed.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really good show. Guns while I was away.
Yeah, it was good. It was brilliant. We had obviously Dale on, and then Taylor Otwell as well, and they were both brilliant guests. They were really open to all our questions. So it's quite surreal to be speaking to him, wasn't it, Mike? But it was great at the same time.
It was surreal, but he was just really down to earth, normal guy, and I don't know.
We got some good comments. I think one guy put on Twitter. The best interview that he'd heard with Taylor done so far, and I thought that was a nice thing to hear.
Yeah, he was a really sound bloke, I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So
has anybody else heard Ed's first interview with Phil Sturgeon?
We weren't allowed to. Have you heard it?
No, he said he told me that he's deleted it, but whether or not he has, but I was very, very up for listening to that, because there was, when I was listening to the podcast, I remember there was a couple of bits where they were like, last time we did the interview, and I was like, hang on, when was the last time? And then, so I had a little chat with him, and he's like, he'd been out for a few drinks and came back, and he'd got speaking to Phil on Skype.
He was so drunk, Fraser, that I could tell he was drunk on Skype, and that's through typing. Not even necessarily through typos either. Let's assume everything was spelt perfectly, and I could still tell he was drunk. Imagine what that must have been like. And he was sending me, I'm just about to do a podcast with Phil Sturgeon, and I thought, career suicide if I do that.
I just know apparently Phil said by the end of it that Ed just couldn't string a sentence together. It just literally made no sense. So I love that.
Because he talks quite fast anyway. But then, when he's had a few, it's,
yeah, absolutely. How about you, Fraser? Any hot picks at all?
Mario Kart 8, does that count?
It definitely does. Yeah. You told me you had that.
Yeah, I kind of had the ideas before I went away of getting the Wii U when it came out for Mario Kart 8. And I came back and stupidly, I can't really afford to at the moment, but stupidly did an impulse buy, but it's amazing.
So I have one hot pick, and in classic,
I have another one.
Oh, do you? Okay, no worries. I have one, and it's my usual way. I've not actually used this, so I'm just plugging it. But basically, someone showed me the other day, which is it's like I believe it's an alternative to Photoshop, but I think it's £30, and it's called Pixelmator. And I will
Microsoft Paint or something like that.
Microsoft Paint. It's new, and
I used that to resize my images up to not that long ago. So anyway,
has its uses. It does. Pixelmator. So I really can't vouch for it, but I promise I would give the guy some credit who said this to me, which is Sean Riley. He's our head of marketing at Extra Digital UK, and he's a great guy. He flits between our Canterbury and London office, so get in contact with him if you have any sort of SEO requirements or anything like that. But he gave me this pick, so it looks pretty good. He was showing it to me the other day. So,
are you taking bribes for hot picks now?
Sorry,
are you taking bribes for hot picks? Is this like a new?
I can't confirm or deny. I would definitely plug people for money. Yeah, I'm shameless. No, I say give him a little plug, but. It looks like a good little tool. So,
will it work nice, like seamlessly with PSD files, or?
I don't know. That I honestly don't know. But
that'll be interesting to see. Actually, if it does, then that could be awesome. Because I'm just looking for a reason to get rid of Photoshop anyway.
What?
Yeah,
I like Photoshop.
It's fine. It's just really heavy, and I don't know. It's maybe just because I'm sick of using it, and I don't know.
It's buggy on Mac, isn't it? It'll just crash like out of the blue.
Or... Can do.
Yeah. But
and it's expensive.
Yeah, that's it.
Because we all pay for it.
Of course.
No, I actually genuinely have no. Yeah.
You're such a liar.
My other hot pick, I said I've been messing around with Laravel a little bit. What I've been building is like a project. I was saying about these data room things earlier on about the uploading files and all that stuff. I've kind of based that as a project for my Laravel learning because it's a product at work that seems to sell quite well, and I figure if I'd quite like to try and make one of these myself. Just be, it could be a good thing to carry with me going forward, and it might be something that someone's always interested in anyway. But I've been dabbling with the Dropbox API with that, and it all seems very nice and easy to work with. I don't know if you guys have ever used it.
Sorry, did you say Dropbox API?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. No, I've not actually. So it's quite nice to use.
Oh, it's dead easy. I installed it just through Composer, and the documentation's fantastic.
So what are you doing to that end then? What are you using it for?
Just to store the files offline, store them on a separate server. Yeah, rather than plugging up my own.
Very nice.
Have you guys used any of the external servers before, like Amazon and all that stuff?
No.
No, it's my first dabble with doing something like that, but I thought obviously rather than jamming up your own server.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Obviously takes a bit longer, I guess, but I can definitely plug that one.
Yeah, nice. Send me a link and we'll put it in the show notes.
It works a lot like most things. You just create an app with it, and then you get your OAuth tokens and connect to it that way, and then you've just got the whole API at your disposal, and the calls are really simple to use. And the best thing is obviously the documentation. That's important, and it's really nice and easy to navigate and in English. So I think
you hit the nail on the head there. Good documentation is the key, isn't it?
It is king.
Yes, absolutely.
We need Fraser to refresh his video.
Yeah, it's quite scary. Yeah. Classic IT phrase. I have got a topic for this week. I've kind of done some notes, but did you two have any other kind of topics that you wanted to talk about before I go into that? I
have. Sorry, Fraser, you go.
Yeah. Lou, please go for it, because I could do with some filler before I get into the killer.
Into the meat of the... Yeah. I just wanted to run by you guys that, quite an important topic in PHP, or a concept that I've heard bandied around quite a lot, whether my understanding of it is correct according to I think you talked about using it the other day. You were messing around with some refactoring of your stuff, Mike, and you were looking at dependency injection and stuff like that.
Yes.
And
yes.
I was thinking dependency injection. I've heard this term bandied around, and I think I know what it means.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd just kind of, because I'm sure there's probably a lot of people out there, particularly like the lesser experienced, that hear these words banded around, but do they know what they mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, dependency injection. To me, that basically when you're using a class and you need to bring in another class to that, rather than instantiating it within like your method or whatever, you actually inject it into your construct, and then you kind of use it that way. With, I guess, the idea being that you only, whatever you inject is obviously then flexible in case you ever need to change what you're using within it.
Yeah,
that's kind of the idea.
That's pretty much spot on. I mean, like with anything, there's so many different ways to skin a cat, but yeah, I think that's quite a popular way of doing it, where you'll actually pass in like a dependency injector container into the construct, and then you reference everything that way. Or I've just done this recently, actually, in some code at work, where I've got like a static class. I just created something very simple where I literally just have some key value pairs of objects that have already been instantiated. And I literally do a simple check, say, look, does it exist? If it does, bring it back. Because I had dependency hell where I had all kinds of stuff going on. I didn't know if an object had already been instantiated, so I ended up with like 7 versions of an object, which is crazy. But yeah, you've pretty much just, the way you just discussed it is definitely probably one of the most popular ways of doing it. So, but yeah, it is one of those kind of concepts or piece of terminology that sounds more complicated than it is actually. But it's like anything, you can go as complicated as you want, or you could just do something very minimal. So, I don't know. Laravel's got its own dependency injector container, is that right?
In a lot of the stuff that Jeffrey Wade does, he does that sort of thing. Like he uses it like with validation and stuff like that. So he injects a validator into a lot of the stuff's like centered around having these service providers for various things, and then you create one for validation, and then you basically then all you need to do is just create an array of validation rules, and then you pass that into this service provider that then injects the validation instance in and does it all for you. So it's kind of done that way.
Yeah. Well,
it's quite a complex thing, I suppose.
Yeah, it can be. Like you say, it just depends how deep you want to go into it. But that's quite topical actually. I've got something in the notes that's kind of related to that. So. Well brought up.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes hand in hand with the other thing that I had written down, which is basically like, to you yourself, like to you two both personally, like, do you feel like in the last sort of X amount of weeks, months, years, whatever, you've gotten better? And if so, like, what are do you have like benchmarks? Like, what is it that you know about yourselves, that you've gotten better? Is it that you can learn things easier? Is it just literally the amount of skills you have at your disposal? And then in line with that, like externally, like say, like bosses and stuff that aren't developers, like how can they value whether their developers have gotten better over time?
That's a great question.
Actually understand like what it is they're actually doing on a daily basis. It's like how do you actually how could you measure whether you've improved or not as a developer?
That's a great question. Fraser, I'll let you go first.
I think the only way you can kind of gauge yourself if you're getting better is by looking at your previous code and then thinking that previous code is absolute crap. And on the topic of self-assessment, be saying like an untechnical manager, how do they know? I guess there are only kind of milestones are if you're building stuff quicker and if stuff is coming out less buggy. I guess or did I just completely miss the question there?
No. You're spot on. I think it's a rhetorical question, really. Well, it's not rhetorical. It's a question with many answers. I just wondered what you guys thought, because you can obviously sit there and think, oh, I'm using tools now that I wasn't using 6 months ago. But
so
are you necessarily writing better code than you were before? How do you know that you definitely are? Obviously,
that's the thing, because I guess it's subjective, isn't it? Because it's not like there's not, like you said before, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And in terms of like, if you're going to write any bit of code to accomplish anything, there's infinite different ways of getting there. And who's to say? Well, obviously there are some ways are obviously better than others, but I guess it's kind of how do you? There's not like a straight line between one point and the other, is there?
This is when we had Phil on the other week. This is something he was talking about. He was quite frequently referring to whether code is good or not. And I wanted to get him to kind of lay down his definition of what makes good code, and obviously good code needs to work and stuff, and not be repeated and stuff like that. But I was thinking, like, even on a deeper level, like going into all like these like responsibility principles and all these really all these terms that get banded around, particularly with like object oriented programming and all that stuff. Are those the kind of things that make some code better than others, or?
Well, I think personally, like, two parts to your question, I guess, but in terms of like being subjective, that you have to have someone review your code, and that's why you do get code reviews. But I certainly had that when I started where I am now, but I think that was kind of like just to check that I actually could do what I said I could do. And after kind of 6 months, that's kind of stopped. But I would still welcome code reviews. I really would, because otherwise, how do you learn? I don't. Yeah. I can sulk with the rest of them. Like, I am pretty good at sulking, and I don't like criticism, but I do acknowledge that it makes you better. So I think that's the only way you can do it. But you can also have an honest look at your code yourself and say, like Fraser said, like, oh, what was I smoking when I wrote that? It's just crazy. But
even then, it's still open to like your own interpretation of that. All right, this code now this looks better to me. But
sometimes you're blind to your own weaknesses, and I mean, I've had Ed before say, "Oh, why are you doing it that way?" And I will sulk, and then I think, he's right, because Ed is always right. But but yeah, I think in terms of how do you improve, like, I think you do get to a point where you know the syntax, you know how to find what you need to do, and then I think when you get to that point, it's all about, then I always say bang on about the craftsmanship, and is your code clean? Are you doing stuff in 200 lines that you could do in 4, and you've not looked to see if there's something out there that does what you actually just spent ages doing, and that's a good thing. You always want to be doing that, right? You always want to be looking back 6 months, thinking, "Oh wow, this is much better than what I did a year ago," and that's in terms of the object-oriented stuff.
Do you think, like, at a higher level, people are going, "Oh, why has this person used an interface when they should have used a trait," or to that degree, or whatever?
Yeah, I think perhaps the people who really take it really seriously. But I think it'd be wrong for them to then slate those people. But I think it's good to debate that kind of stuff. And you're right, interfaces, traits, abstract classes, all that kind of stuff is a huge... There's no right or wrong answer in most cases. Like, it's just how you want to do it. And that's why I find design patterns really interesting. But yeah, again, 100 ways to skin a cat, isn't there? And who can
say that? Right? Your cat's 2 yards behind you. Don't say that.
He's looking a bit scared now.
I'm just waiting for him to pipe up. He's been very good, been very quiet. But that is a great question, actually. It's really interesting.
Any listeners care to venture an opinion on that, then leave a comment on this podcast or tweet one of us. I'd be interested to hear other people's thoughts on that one.
I guess, for any beginners out there, PHP the right way. And I've only really started just looking at that site now, which is a bit embarrassing. But thankfully, I'm doing a lot of stuff that's in there. But yeah, that probably is the right way to do it. But again, without being too much kind of like, your code's good, your code's bad. I wouldn't do that. And the other thing is, like you're saying with the object-oriented stuff, I think potentially you could look at someone's procedural code and say, actually, that code is better than that guy's OO code. Just because you're doing the latest things doesn't mean you're doing it right. And, I've seen procedural code that looks really tight and really nice.
It seems like it's interesting now when I go back to build sites that aren't big enough to require a framework or anything like that. Yeah, it's becomes quite an interesting challenge. Like, obviously being a bit further down the road now and knowing more than I did before. Like, how cleanly can I write? Taking all the fancy frameworks out of it. Like, how cleanly can you just write a simple PHP website?
Yeah, that's it. And I think, again, this is topical because some stuff I'm going to bring up in a bit, but like things like interfaces, like I got into them in the Java world before I did PHP, and I still say they're a lot more powerful in Java because you can basically specify that data types that you expect to be given and what you expect to return, where in PHP you can't do that. You could literally pass it cheese and return it whatever. There's no specification. So they but I do think they still act as a really good contract. And they can stop other people extending your class and then doing stuff they shouldn't be. You've got to make sure they have these methods. So, but you're right. I always have that debate all the time, thinking, should I use a trait? Should I use interface? Should I abstract class? Or at the end of the day, I guess it's what feels right to you at the moment, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, traits and interfaces aren't something that I've really used that much, but
Yeah.
I guess when I eventually kind of investigate them fully, I'll suddenly think, oh yeah, that's something I definitely would use that for.
Yeah.
Because I take it they're obviously more than a class, aren't they? They're not just another class. They obviously have a specific purpose.
Are we talking about a trait now? Sorry.
Traits, interfaces, anything like that. Any of these new kind of things.
So
They're kind of set up to make the drive principle even clearer, aren't they? Like to break it down even more.
For an interface, it makes it easier. It's all about kind of keeping consistency and hierarchies and stuff. But an interface, I mean, they don't really do anything other than saying, look, anything that implements me, they have to have these methods. So then the end programmer knows that those methods are going to be there. They have to be, or else you're going to get a PHP error. A trait, it's just they kind of like, well, how do we handle multiple inheritance? Because you can only extend something once, right? Same as in Java. So it's just a good way of doing that. I still don't fully get behind traits, but I guess, it's better than anything I could think of. An abstract class is, that's a good one. I mean, difference between abstract class and traits, really. Why would you use... But then, I'm not going to get into it.
Trial and error, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I mean, it's having that certain situation crop up in a project and realising that one's a better way to go over another.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you guys heard of the book Gang of Four? Which sounds very unrelated to actually what it is, but it's basically, apparently it's like one of the famous books on like design patterns, but I've not read it, but there's a lot of people out there say if you're in programming, you should read this book, you should have read it, so I'm going to try and acquire it. But I think, again, for anyone who's kind of intermediate developer, that'd be a really good thing to read as well as PHP the right way.
What kind of things have stuck out to you then researching all this stuff?
Well, like you said, like the dependency injection thing, like as soon as I watched I think it was like a video from a PHP conference in London or something, and I was just like, why am I not doing it that way? That's crazy. Like, why wouldn't you want to check, see if an object's already there and then just grab it if it is? There's a lot of stuff, again, that I do in Java and I don't do in PHP, and I think, well, why not? Everything's there now since like PHP 5.3. Everything's there to allow you to do a lot of that stuff. So, but yeah, I want to be known. I want my reputation to be that, my code is really clean and really efficient. And that's what I'm always striding towards. And again, I don't practice what I preach a lot of the time, but yeah, I don't know. I looked at that, and then I was reading about factory classes and a singleton pattern, and everyone's got their opinions. Some people slate these things, but like I just get to a point where I need to keep pushing myself, keep learning more. And design patterns now seems like that's the area for me. So yeah, I definitely recommend it to you guys, to look at as well. And like I said, I'm going to read that Gang of Four book and hopefully learn some stuff from that before I go back to uni, before the baby's born as well. So, yeah. So shall I move on to the topic then?
Fire away.
I know, I've not used a lot of this stuff, so I just thought it'd be good to look at. And for any listeners, I actually looked, and there's a lot of people on the web looking for podcasts on this, and there wasn't anything. So either it's because it's a really boring topic, or there's just not a lot out there. But SPL, which... Have you guys used much?
I never have.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold my hand up and say I never even heard about it until I got a text message from you this morning saying we're going to be talking about SPL. Do some research. And I've had a bit of a round day, so I will have to hold my hand up and say I'm going to learn as much of this as possible from you.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm bad teachers to learn from, but yeah, sure. Lou, I know you've used part of it, right?
I've used literally one of the functions, SPL autoload register.
Yeah.
Which when I started to make my own framework, which was, I don't know, a little while back, I obviously, rather than doing your normal standard PHP method of scanning a directory and going through all the files and including them and doing all that stuff, SPL autoload register is a nice little function that you can pass an anonymous function into. Well, there's quite a few different ways of using it actually, but it'll just basically, anytime you add a new class or a file into a directory, it'll automatically auto-load it for you.
Yeah,
and it works really nicely. I've actually gone away from that now. I use Composer to do all my auto-loading, and that's even easier. But obviously, if you're not someone that uses Composer, then this would probably be the best way for you to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, you've just wrapped it up pretty well there. But basically, all it does, like you say, is just like almost like a event listener. Every time you make instantiate a new object, it just listens out and then goes and finds that class for you. But there's like you say, you can either do it with an anonymous function or you can pass in a function, and you can then have more fine-grained control on that. Say, well, look, if the class doesn't exist, do this. If it doesn't, and you can just manage it a lot easier. So that's just, like you say, that's one of the functions in there, which is really nice. But to introduce it, I've taken a bit of this from Wikipedia and some from the PHP docs. But the SPL is the Standard PHP Library. It's an extension developed by Marcus Borger. I hope I've not got that wrong. Ed's pretty crying when he listens to this.
Is that the guy you tweeted today trying to get him to come on? Is that the fella?
No, I didn't tweet anyone.
Oh no, someone tweeted. Sorry, go on. I'm interrupting.
Oh. That would have been good. No, that's cool. As the manual says, is a collection of interfaces and classes that are meant to solve standard problems. So I seem to remember you, Fraser, like, maybe I dreamt this, that sounds weird, but you saying like one time you did something, then you realised there was like a function that did it for you or something like that. Or it might
that was when we were doing the string reverse thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Ed's kata thingies.
One of Ed's code katas, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all kind of like tried to do it ourselves and realize something out there did it for you, and that's so often the way. And actually, I think like for me, just looking at this SPL thing yesterday, and I'm sure you guys look at it and think, wow, there's tools in there that I actually could have found really useful. And again, I keep saying this, probably a bit unfair, but PHP tends to like follow the Java world and take a lot of stuff from that. So a lot of this stuff in here is like stuff that's already exists in Java and other languages. I'm just picking Java as an example. But the other description I've got is basically SPL is a collection of classes and interfaces providing an API for built-in PHP functions, allowing developers to write fully object-oriented code with standard tools using PHP in a much more elegant way. Came in with 5.3. So that's a pretty good example of what it is. And if you look at the PHP documentation, by the way, there's going to be a quiz at the end, so start writing notes now. But it is kind of split into 4 kind of sections, which is data structures.
How many sections was that?
6.
Split into 4 what?
Sections.
What kind of sections?
Data structures.
Structures.
Oh, this is going to be painful. Iterators. Interfaces.
How do you spell iterators?
That's one of the questions. So
yeah.
And functions, basically. So it is too much. It's too big a topic to discuss in one episode. So I've just kind of picked out some things from here. So I start off with the data structures section, and one of the things I took out was the SPL priority queue class. Have either of you heard of priority queues before?
Not myself, no.
Fraser? No? Cool. Well, basically, I've only used it in Java, but it's a way of structuring. So, you've got like an array, or you might sometimes end up using like array sort, right? If you need to change ordering or something like that. Mm-hmm. Well, basically what this does is allows you to order things in a collection, but you can say what the criteria is for like whether stuff is on top or at the bottom of the queue. So the way that this works is it has a method in it called compare. And then in that compare method, you can say how that works, what the kind of algorithm is. So you might want to say you have a collection of cheeses and you want to order them by, I don't know, their strength of smell or whatever. So you can then define in that compare method how they're going to be ordered. And that's what priority queue does for you. It's exactly that. So it's hard to think of a real life example, but probably something like Musical Umbrella or something like that. At one point or another, you could probably have used that. So that's all that is, but it's really useful. SPL fixed array is basically just like your standard array, but you can actually set a max size to that. You set a limit, which I don't think you can do with a bog standard PHP array, but I could be wrong. But I think that's the reason they brought it in, that you could specify a length. And again, that's something that's taken from other languages.
Just the number of items that the array will accept?
Yeah, you can control it then. So maybe you're working with another programmer, but you don't want them to expand that array. Whatever reason, but you can set a limit on it. And then if someone tries to add something on top of that, then I don't know if it throws an exception or you'll get an error, but it just won't let you go over that, basically.
Ooh.
Yeah. Another one, which I've never heard of, but actually I've probably used at some point or another, but is the SPL doubly linked list. And basically what this does is it allows, again, it's collection based, so you can store lots of objects, but you might have like a chain of these objects and they all have some sort of relationship to each other. So, like, let's just say, okay, Fraser's child is Lou and Lou's child is Kim and Kim's child is Ed. You can then trace your steps back through that collection. Say,
sounds like the weirdest Jeremy Kyle episode I've ever seen.
Yeah, but you can actually go through and get the previous item, the next item, and you've got that kind of collection of nodes. So again, probably never used it, probably never needed to, but you might get a project come up where that comes quite useful.
A lot of it's having knowledge that these things are even there. Cause
exactly.
I'm sure half the time, we've made stuff that produces the same output.
Yeah.
As half these things, but
completely.
Again, how do you always even come across? How do you even know to look for something to be there? Let alone, if you're not aware of the problem being there in the first place, and you just instantly make a solution to something.
Yeah, that's it. And it's quite often when you look at other code bases, you see this stuff going on. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's weird. I class myself as being pretty efficient with PHP now, but there's so many parts of the language that I've never even used.
Yeah. That bugs me because so often.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, and how often do you end up going to some ridiculous lengths to achieve some purpose, and then you find out that something else does it for you? So that's why it's a good idea to just read through the SPL docs, I think. Like I say, I've used it as much as you guys have. I'm not claiming to be an expert at this stuff. I've just read through today trying to prepare some notes. But the next section I've got is iterators, and I'm not going to hammer, because there's loads of iterator classes in the SPL, and they all have slightly different purposes, and you can find one that does exactly what you want. But again, I've used iterators in the Java world, and all it is basically just, again, it's almost like it's a collection of items that you can iterate through and do something with. And the one that I've picked out this isn't strictly from the SPL, but this kind of implements iterator class or seekable iterator class, and that's array access. And I've seen this in Magento. I know, Fraser, you've done a little bit of Magento, right?
A little bit, yeah, very little.
A little bit. Yeah, but sometimes if you do a print R on an object in Magento, you'll see suddenly you've got you print out an object, but you've got parameters that you can access almost like in array syntax. And that's what array access does. It's you have these methods that you have to specify through interface style. You have to set these methods. And basically what you can do then is you've got an object, but you can access its properties in array syntax. That's all it is. And again, I can't think of a real life example where you'd want that at the moment. But again, like I say, it's in Magento, so obviously someone's found a need for that. So next section is okay. So that was iterators. The next one is interfaces, and again, I've just picked out another one which is countable. And all that does, again, it's just because it's just an interface. It just forces you to have a method, and it's only one method I think with countable, and that method is called, I think is it count? Oh, I should write that down.
Yeah, it is. I've got it in front of me.
Yeah. So you've just got an instance variable in just above your constructor, which is count, and it just keeps a count of how many elements you've got in your object. And I think it's interesting because I think I'm not sure exactly, but I saw Phil Sturgeon put something about how he wants this kind of functionality to come in more kind of natively in PHP 6. But but this certainly allows you to count the elements in an object. And I've had that before, not so much in PHP, but I've had it in JavaScript, where I've actually had to extend the prototype to allow me to count stuff in an object.
I see. Rather than I don't know, another way, casting it to an array first or something.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be useful.
Yeah.
That's something I could see myself using.
Yeah. So like I said, I've only picked a few things out of here. I mean, you could read through and find something that's more to your needs. But yeah. And then the last section I've got really is the function side of things. And we talked about the SPL also register, and that kind of a nicer way of creating your classes rather than having this long list of require this, require that, or include this, include that. And the way that I've done in the past is just literally set some directories that I know that have got classes in them, and just say, look, every time I initialize this object, to see if I can find this class in any of these folders. If not, log it for an exception, whatever you want to do. And then I've got 3 other functions that I found, there's one which is called class_parents. and I had this last week, and I really wish I'd have known about this, but all this does is so put your object inside the parentheses, and it just shows you all the parent classes that class belongs to.
Shows what's extending what, basically.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Really useful. Yeah. And again, on the same kind of vein, really, class underscore implements, and that just returns the interfaces used by a class. And if Ed was here, he'd keep telling me to say class instead of class, but I've just got it in my head. Yeah. Class underscore users, and that returns the traits that are used by a class. So they're kind of tools that are really quite useful when you're debugging stuff, I find.
At the risk of sounding really stupid, can I see if, there might be a really obvious answer to this, but can you extend more than one class at once?
You can't, and that's the issue, and that's the same with Java. And
I needed to do that the other day.
Yeah. And that's the problem, isn't it? And that's why they brought in traits, basically. Every language has this problem of how do they deal with multiple inheritance.
Yeah.
And that is, a debate that will last the ages, I suspect. But you're right.
Because you end up making this class extend this class for you then to be able to extend that first class so that you can then get that other class, and it gets a bit fiddly, doesn't it? If you suddenly need all those methods in this one particular class that you're in, you got to make sure they're available without obviously manually bringing them in yourself anyway.
I think there's certainly an argument, or there's certainly purists who would say that extending classes should be avoided. And actually,
I do try and avoid it now.
Yeah,
I've kind of identified that as maybe bad practice in them.
Yeah, it's that whole coupling and cohesion argument again. And if you're extending classes, it can get very messy and everything's tightly coupled. But yeah, I got burnt by that, and it's so easy to extend a class and then you suddenly inherit all that functionality from the parent class. But actually, just if you can, maybe just make up an instance of it within that class rather than extending it. But again, that's a debate I guess that a lot of people would have. And the other thing, again, I kind of got this from the Java world, where basically everything in Java is you're kind of managing things with references. So whenever you reference an object, you're actually accessing it via the reference of the object rather than the actual physical object itself. And there is something, and this comes back to what you were talking about, Lou, with dependency injection, but there's a method called SPL underscore object underscore hash, and that returns the object hash ID. So what some people do with their DIC is, I've done something really simple where I've just got an array of key value pairs, and I say, well, look, if I've got this array, then store it. So I have the class name, and then I have the object. But what you could do is store it and use the hash ID, and then it becomes more efficient, I think, when you're calling in objects. I can't get too deep into that. I mean, Ed would probably know more, but it's just a good way of doing it.
This is, again, without the risk of sound stupid, this is like instead of namespacing or something like that? Or?
It's not instead of, sorry. It's kind of as well as.
For a different reason?
Yeah. It's hard to say, but definitely the dependency inject container would be a really good example. It'd be interesting to see if something like, I don't know if you hear when I was plugging in Pimple.
I heard.
Yeah, you guys should definitely have a look at Pimple. It's like 80 lines of code or something, but it's like a dependency injector container, open source. And that's really good. I don't know if Pimple does it this way, but you could, instead of having your class name as your key, you could have like the hash. Or maybe the other way around. Maybe I've got that wrong. Maybe like the class name would be your key and the value would be the hash. And then I'm not 100% sure. But that's definitely, a useful one if you're really looking for incredible efficiency, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see a practical example of that being used.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So that is SPL in a nutshell. And like I say, it's a huge library, so you could spend all week looking at it. But I
couldn't believe how many things are on that list there, actually.
Yeah, but like you guys say, again, I don't use it, but I kind of think, well, that's bad. I should be using it. There's how much stuff is there that we could be using, So I do have a little quiz. Are you guys ready?
I have been taking a few notes, but not very many. Some buzzwords have been written down.
I've got you on video so I can see if you're Googling stuff. So, yeah. Cool. So the first one's multiple choice. And it's not first one in. You can both answer at your own pace. So no worries there. So number one, The PHP iterator class extends what class? Is it A, irresistible? Actually, I didn't actually talk about this in the podcast, so this is just going to be random guessing.
Thanks,
B,
Mike.
sorry, man. So A, irresistible. B, irrational. C, sequential. D, traversable. Or E, sexual.
Traversable.
Okay.
Sequential.
You got for sequential. Final answers?
I can't imagine it being A or D or whatever it was.
Okay, so Fraser, you are right. It is traversable.
Oh, that's so annoying. That was going to be my next guess.
Number 2. I did mention this in the podcast. So, what is the important method
I hope that didn't come out. I said a rude word then.
I didn't hear it. What is the important method within SPL priority queue that allows it to assess priority over each entry? You guys won't listen to me.
Can you read it again? Read me the question.
Yeah. Okay, it's what is the important method within SPL priority queue that allows it to assess priority over each entry? So remember I sent us this priority queue class.
And
it looks at each entry in your collection and decides which is more...
Compare, something like that?
Okay,
differentiate.
Lou, I'm giving you the point. It's compare.
Oh, happy days.
Good work.
Yeah.
So, question number 3. What does the function class_uses do?
Oh, it tells
Is this
you
one
the...
you talked about?
Oh, that's
Yep.
that word. I know what it is, but
to
it's...
do with multiple inheritancy.
Yes, it is, and it is... I can't even think of the word because it's just... My mind has gone blank.
Does it return the methods that it uses,
no,
or
methods. It's
not the methods?
Oh god!
Traits. Yes, yeah. Lou, you're in. Good work.
Happy
Number
days.
4.
That's
version?
technically my second guess, but
What version of PHP did SPL ship with?
5.3.
Correct, Lou. Good work. Number 5. What is the main difference between SPL fixed array and a standard PHP array?
Is that the one where you can specify a limit?
Yes. Fraser, what's going on?
I'm just getting destroyed. I haven't got an excuse.
Number 6. Okay. What functionality does the SPL doubly linked list class provide?
Now you've got me.
This one is a bit tricky, to be fair. I'll give you a clue, Fraser. You put a comment in the Skype window after I give my example.
Yes.
This was the Jeremy Kyle moment?
Yes.
This was the one where it is the children of the class and the children of the class and the children of the class, and I can't remember what you're doing with them apart from just getting their names.
Exactly. I'm going to give you a point for that. That's good. So yeah, basically a linked data structure that consists of a set of sequentially linked records called nodes.
That's exactly what I said.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what I mean. That's what I took from your answer, Fraser.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
Bang. Number 7. How many Star Trek conventions has Ed been to between 2000 and 2014? You should all know this.
how many is it?
It's multiple choice.
Is it one a year?
So it's 14. No, there's more than 1 year because he goes overseas for them as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he's been this year, though, is he? I don't know. But it's multiple choice anyway. It's A, 18, B, 7, or C, 12.
12.
Oh, so he has definitely been then.
He has, yeah. He's a big fan, yeah.
Just pausing a moment for a thought for Ed and what his reaction is at the minute. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here, and I'm going to say 7.
7. Fraser was right with 12. 12.
Oh, Ed.
I didn't realise that he was a Trekkie.
Oh, massive. Yeah, Uber. Yeah, didn't you brought that up in a podcast one time when Ben Ramsey was on? I'm sure you did. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, massive, huge. Yeah. Number 8.
How do you know that anyway? Did you just randomly say to him, "Oh, Ed, I'm going to ask you a question for no specific reason, but how many times precisely have you been to?"
Just came up in conversation the other day. Weirdly, I don't know, but yeah, there we go.
Well, you two must have some amazing conversations.
We are pretty close, yeah. Number 8. What does the function SPL_object_hash do? This was
I know that one, but
yeah.
Go on, I'll let you answer it then.
it returns the hash of the object.
You're so on the docks, aren't you?
No, I'm not. No, that was the last one we did.
Oh, really?
No, that was,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Lee, good point.
And I wasn't with any of the other ones either.
Yeah. This one I only found out about a week ago. This is nothing to do with SPL, by the way, but this is amazing and helped me out with Magento so much. But what method can you use to return all methods on a class? Method function, I'll say. So what function can you use to return all methods on a class?
Oh no, I'm thinking of get divine vars. It's not that, is it? That's something totally different.
Similar kind of, area there.
Just on an individual class.
Yeah, well, on an individual class, and you can actually pass in an object as well. It can be a class name or an object.
Is it get class methods?
It is.
Yeah, I've used that. Yeah, I've used
underscore
that.
class, underscore methods. That is amazing. I definitely recommend that.
I'm trying to think when I used. I can't remember when it was, but I definitely used that to help me debug once because I wasn't sure what was where.
Yeah. So the last two questions are not SPL related, So number 10 is what jQuery method can you use to add an event handler to all Ajax calls? So it applies to every Ajax call you make.
To add an event handler?
Yeah. I've used this once before.
What, in conjunction with
Fraser, you're fucking Ajax?
I know, jQuery is my baby, but I haven't got a clue.
I've probably done it. But
yeah.
To add an event listener
to every single Ajax call.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you what. You can Google it. First one to Google it and find out. Actually, that won't make very good airtime. So I'll just tell you, it's just .ajax complete. So you could, for example, do $ and then in your parentheses document, and then just put .ajax complete, and then you'll see you can put like an anonymous function in there or passing a function, and it will just handle every Ajax call you make. It will do something. I don't know if it overwrites like the local event handler that you do. I don't know, but it will apply to everything basically.
I didn't even know that existed. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I had a project where it came up and it was just really handy to have, to be honest.
It'd just be nice to have that for debugging, like just chuck a console log in there and just log whatever the
exactly. Yeah, that's
so anytime you do jQuery.ajax or whatever, it will call that as well and do whatever.
Exactly that. Yeah.
And I guess it works on post and get and the other kind of the shorthand methods as well.
Fairly certain it does. Yeah. Because they're all doing the same thing under the hood, aren't they? So yeah. Number 11, CSS one here for you. How do I set a style for text that is selected by a user?
Oh, jeez.
I've done this before as well.
So that question made sense, right?
Never had to do it.
No, me neither. I've never used it.
It's not focus or blur, is it?
Websites before because the client said when they highlight text, can it be a different color?
Yeah.
And HTML5 boilerplate also has it in as a
Does
standard. It? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, if you go to HTML5 boilerplate and highlight some text, it won't be whatever the default color is, I think.
Right.
But I don't know.
Is this a guessable word? Does it sound
guessable.
like what it does?
It's definitely
Selection?
Guessable. Yeah. And there's something before selection?
Text hyphen?
No.
No.
It's just : basically.
Okay, right.
And there's a JS fiddle there in the window for you if you wanted to see it. But so that completes the quiz. So I have got Lou 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Many points.
1, 2, 3. 5 to 3.
Well played, Lewis.
4.
Good game. You're a bit rusty, mate. You've been out of your game for a couple of weeks.
I'll actually was
closer than I thought. It was 5 to 4, I think.
No, I disagree with that.
Yeah, I disagree with that as well.
I preferred it when it was 5-3. Are you sure it wasn't 5-2?
Fraser, you got traversable right. You got the SPL doubly linked list kind of right, and you got the Star Trek conventions right, and you got the how do I set a style for text that is selected by user. So yeah.
Well,
I'll take it. I got all that. I didn't get all those exactly right. I think I
it.
kind of hinted or danced around the right answer, but never actually got it on the note. I'll take the 4 points anyway.
So, yeah.
Cool.
So it's SPL all covered, guys. So yeah, well done.
Well done, Mike. That was good.
Yeah, very well.
Thanks, man.
I'm
a bit wordy, but there we go. It's a bit hard otherwise.
Hopefully that answers some questions that people had about it.
Yeah. So really, that just kind of leaves us to do our usual thing, really. Just say anyone who has any questions or any topics they want us to do, please send them in. We really like that.
I thought that was cool fun last week doing the show where we were answering questions. So if we could get a couple of shows like that, I reckon it'd be pretty
really was good, actually. Yeah.
Well, they're natural material as well, aren't they? It's good to have that kind of thing because everyone's got an opinion on each subject, haven't they? So
yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, by all means. You answered that question on my behalf brilliantly last week, by the way, when the guy was wondering about how we should get into it and didn't have any portfolio. Yeah, thanks for that.
Because I listened to your podcast where you were talking.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was good, man. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Really I enjoyed doing that one.
And we don't have any questions in. Oh, it's not aired yet anyway, but definitely. I think it'd be a good feature to have one question a week on relationship advice. I'd be definitely up for that. I think that'd be developers. We do a good job
if
of
anyone's having relations with their sisters or is don't know who their baby's dad is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll help out with all that.
And we can give you some horrendous life advice and you can go on and ruin your life.
We're not just here for web anymore. We're here for whatever you need.
This show's evolved.
Yeah. This isn't about us anymore.
But anyway, we didn't really explain, but Ed couldn't make it tonight because he had a pretty horrific journey to London this morning. I think his train was delayed, so Was
he going to some kind of Mick Hucknall reunion show thing?
I
think, well, that was after work.
There was a trivia called Simply Ed or something like that.
Simply Ed.
Simply Ed.
It's his tribute band, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's the lead singer. He puts on this ginger wig and he's amazing.
He's very good. Very good. Yeah.
He does like Mick Hucknall.
And there should be tour dates coming out soon, so we'll definitely put them in show notes when they come out. So, yeah,
it's possibly some of the most best random thinking I've ever done. Coming up with that, Mick Hucknall quickly led on to Simply Ed.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we will be back next week.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Take care, all. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.